students, I'm Aanchal Sharma, your educator. In this video, we are going to discuss about another concept related to environment. So today we are going to discuss about the wastewater treatment plant. Let us look at the categorization of wastewater. Wastewater is the water that has some addition of unadditional substances that are hazardous, or it can be some substances that are not fit for drinking. So this water becomes a dirty water. So it can be water from the storm water. So it can be storm water runoff. It can be from the industrial purpose, the water used in the industrial purpose, or it can be the industrial water. It can also be the water that is added coming from the domestic sphere, that is from your household sector. The household sector wastewater can be again categorized into two parts, and this was your PYQ as well. So what is grey? The division is grey water and black water. So what is grey water? Grey water is that water that is of course dirty, but it can be used again. So for example, say that you have been washing your car and there is some water that is left, but you can still use that water to just give it to the plants or water the plants. So it is the reusing of the water. So this is called as grey water. But black water is the water from your washrooms or something, that these are those kind of water that cannot be used again, right? So if you can reuse the water, it becomes grey water. If you cannot use it again and it becomes unfit to be used again, you term it as your black water. Right? So the grey water can come from bathrooms, from laundry or from kitchen, which can be used again. But black water is the water that cannot be used again. Right? So this is the division between the different types of water, and from where you can see that these wastewater can be collected. So how can you see that we are in this video going to see how the municipal wastewater treatment system works? And how can we clean the water? So water that is unfit, water that is undesirable is disposed of, and it is taken to the municipal corporation, and there the cleaning of the water happens. The water can be cleaned with, there are few stages, and it goes through those stages, and then you can say that the water at the end becomes fit to be either added again to any water body, or it can be fit to be safe for drinking. So it depends which type of the tertiary treatment is being done. If the the best type of tertiary treatment is through these UV rays, and if proper UV rays, chlorine and everything is used, then it becomes fit for drinking. But before discharging the water into the water bodies also, you need to make it fit. Otherwise, the pollution would only enter into the water bodies and more amount of pollution would be there. So the treatment of water becomes very important. Now let us see the municipal wastewater treatment system. So there are few systems. There is always the raw sewage that enters into the water. Then there is the pre-primary treatment that is done. After the pre-primary treatment, where we remove the materials that can cause the operational problems, these are basically the large granules or the large bricks that can be removed by your hand also. So this is the pre-primary treatment. After the pre-primary treatment, the primary treatment is done so that we can remove the 60% of the solids that are present, and the B.O.D., that is the biological oxygen demand, is also maintained here. Then comes the secondary treatment. In the secondary treatment, mostly it is the treatment that is done with the help of microorganisms. These microorganisms would feed on the other organic substances that are present in the water, and the cleaning of the water happens at the secondary stage with the help of aeration tanks. Then comes the advanced treatment that is done. Then we have the final treatment, and at the end we have the solid processing. In the solid processing, now the sludge management is becoming very common. So what is sludge? Sludge is basically the residue that is left after the cleaning of the water. So at each step you will be having some residue, and at the end this residue, this leftover waste, can be disposed of either in the landfills, which is the most common way to dispose of, or it can be taken into a sanitary landfill, which is again a very important and effective step that should be taken. It can either be taken to incineration tanks which is not a very good way to dispose of the waste. Why? Because a lot of pollution happens because of the incineration, that is the burning of the waste. Or it can be your pyrolysis. Pyrolysis is also burning, but in the presence of oxygen. Or what can be done? It can be dumped, so composting can be done, or recycling can be done. Also electricity or biogas, methane can be formed out of all these sludge management in the sludge management part of the cleaning process. That is how you can in fact use the sludge. The remaining dead stuff that you have at the end can also be utilized, right? So this is the basic structure of how the treatment happens. We start with the pre-primary treatment, then comes the primary treatment, then the secondary treatment, and then we have the tertiary treatment that is being done, and then it is received by the body. So this is the structure that you should remember from your exam point of view, and questions have been asked from it as well. So first of all, we have the wastewater that is added. There is always a debris screen. The debris screen is a screen that through which the water is passed from a very higher rate and pressure. The water is placed in a debris screen. The debris screen will clean all the large particles that can be removed, like polythenes, like plastic bags, bottles, bricks, etc. would be washed away from here. Then we have the dirt removal. In the dirt removal also there is removal of the larger particles. This is your primary stage. After the primary stage, the water goes to the primary clarification tank. From this tank, there is sludge that is deposited at the bottom. So after the sludge that is deposited here, we can collect the sludge in a sludge digester. After that comes the secondary stage. So till the primary stage, we know that all the large particles are being removed. They are removed, and the water has also removed the sludge that settles down at the bottom of the primary clarification tank. After that, only the organic substances are present in the water. So this stage is also a stage where biological treatment is being done. This biological treatment is done in the aeration tank. As the name itself says, there is the presence of air. In the presence of air, there is a churning effect in the water. As the water churns up, air is being popped up into the container, and this air will increase the growth of microorganisms in the water that you have already placed in the aeration tank. This will eat up all the bacteria that is present, and gradually it will become heavy, and at the secondary clarification tank, the substances that are unwanted will settle down. So at this stage also, you can collect the activated sludge and take it to the sludge digester. But do you think the water is cleaned at this stage? Definitely not. There are few organisms that are still present in the water. There can be excess amount of phosphorus, nitrates that can also be present in the water after the cleaning at the secondary stage also. So we need to again clean the water, because these substances are not fit for the water bodies. If you put the water, or if you again place this kind of water that has a huge phosphorus or nitrate content, nitrogen content, what will happen? The water bodies will become, again the waste is added to the water body. And all of these things we have discussed in the process of eutrophication also. If there is excess amount of phosphorus or nitrogen in the water, then what will happen? The water will have a lot of growth. See, of the following, there can be different plants and animals breeding there, and algae bloom can be seen. So this type of water that is not fully clean, that has a lot of phosphorus content, cannot be placed inside any water body. Otherwise, eutrophication will happen. What will happen when there is eutrophication? The sunlight won't enter. The water bodies that are living there, the flora and the fauna that are there inside below the land, below the water, will die gradually, because the oxygen won't enter, the sunlight won't enter, there will be excess growth of algae there, and the water will become degraded. So we cannot place this amount of water. Then we go to the tertiary stage. If we do not go to the tertiary stage, we can also take the second step, that is putting this water in a small lagoon. So if you put this water in a small lagoon, the purification can happen on its own. If you think that the organic waste that is present is very less, then that water can clean itself on its own if you put it somewhere separately in a lagoon. That we will be discussing further in the video. If you do not take the second resort, you can also take the water to the tertiary treatment. In the tertiary treatment, there is the chlorination is done. The chlorination is done by using some UV rays as well. So the water is filtered, disinfection is done, and then the final discharge would happen. There can be other treatments like the ion fixation that can be done, right? So when these treatments are done, the water at the end becomes very fit for drinking or also fit for disposing in a water body so that the pollution does not increase. So this is the basic structure. The water or the waste that you have collected in the sludge digester is dewatered. That means the excess water is taken away. It becomes dry, and then it is taken to the landfill, or it can be used to make electricity or methane. That depends how you are using the waste and which kind of waste you have collected, right? This is the basic structure. We have the primary, the secondary and the tertiary stages. There are three broad levels of the treatment: the primary, the secondary and the tertiary. The primary treatment remove the coarse suspended particles and the grits that are present. By the process of screening, there is also a grit chamber. These all are your PYQs, so read it very carefully. Then we have this is the pre-primary treatment, right? So after this pre-primary, this means that the solids are removed that are in very large size. This can be removed in screening and in the grit chamber. Then comes the primary treatment. In the primary treatment, the settleable organic and inorganic solids are removed when the sedimentation is done, or the floating materials called as scum is also removed. Sometimes also floating materials are removed. They are called as scum, and the process is called as skimming. Then we have the secondary treatment. This is further treatment of the primary effluent to remove the residual organisms and the suspended particles. Also, the biodegradable dissolved and colloidal organic matter is removed by aerobic biological treatment process. The removal of organic matter is when the nitrogen compounds and the phosphorus compounds and the other pathogenic microorganisms are removed. So at this stage, at the secondary stage, we want to remove all of these microorganism compounds that are present. There can be phosphorus compounds, there can be nitrogen compounds, and if this amount of compounds are placed in the water will erode or degrade on its own. The treatment can be done mechanically, like the trickling filters can be used, activated sludge methods can be there, rotating biological contracts can be used, and non-chemically you can use the anaerobic treatment also. Oxidation ditches can be there, or stabilization ponds can be there. The thing about lagoon I was telling can also be used. They are also called as the stabilization ponds. Then comes the tertiary treatment. At the tertiary treatment, that means the advanced treatment is done at this stage. There are some specific wastewater constituents which cannot be removed at the secondary treatment. They are treated in the tertiary treatment. Advanced treatment removes very significant amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, heavy metals, biodegradable organic matter that is there, bacteria and different viruses. At this stage, disinfection by the injection of chlorine, ozone or the usage of ultraviolet rays is done. This is this stage where you use the disinfection. Disinfection is done by chlorine, ozone or ultraviolet rays. Then the pre-primary treatment. In the pre-primary treatment, the industrial waste must be pre-treated before it is discharged and given to the municipal corporation or municipal sewer system. So pre-primary treatment requires some regulatory agencies as well. And why do we do it? We remove the materials that cannot and will not be treated at the municipal system. We remove the materials that inhibit the biological process. And then, for example, there can be few toxic bacteria, some silver ions that should be removed at the pre-treatment only. This is one diagram again. This is a basic water treatment plant. As I was telling you, there is a pre-primary treatment that can be done at the very beginning only. Then we will do the primary treatment. Then with the help of the aeration tank, there can be the secondary treatment. The final treatment, the tertiary treatment is done, and then the water is discharged. Also, the sludge treatment is done here. So we always start with the primary treatment. Upon arrival via the sewage system, the waste is sent through a bar screen, and the solid objects like the sticks or the rags or the bricks are removed at the pre-primary stage only. Leaving the bar screen, the wastewater flow, and there is the slow flow is there so that the substances are captured. Entering a grout tank, this allows the sand, the gravel and the heavy metals that have a small enough amount to be screened off by the bar screener only, or they can settle at the bottom. All the collected debris from the grout tank and the bar screen is disposed of at the sanitary landfill. So the sanitary landfill is something we have discussed in greater detail in the class, and I'm pretty sure you're well aware of it. Then comes the primary treatment. The primary treatment is the second step of this wastewater treatment. It allows for the physical separation of the other solid and the greases that are present in the water, or the oil that was not clean in the pre-primary treatment. The screened wastewater flows to the primary settling tank, where it is held for several hours, and the solid particles would settle at the bottom. If it is oil or grease, it will float, right? So the skimming can also be done at this stage. Then comes the secondary treatment. The secondary treatment process removes the dissolved organic material that is present from the wastewater. Particularly treated wastewater from the settling tank flows by gravity into the aeration tank. So in the aeration tank, in the presence of air, the microorganisms would breathe, will become heavy and would settle. So this is how you can treat the waste. Mixing the water with the solid containing that use oxygen to consume the remaining organic matter in the wastewater as their food supply. So this is a container, and here you have water. This water already has few bacteria in it and few compounds that are organic but not removed at your primary stage. You can add more of your biological substances so that they will feed on the waste, they will become heavy, and gradually they will settle down. So this means that the waste would settle down and you can remove the debris or the sludge at the end. Mixing the water to the solid containing that use oxygen to consume the remaining organic matter. There will be oxygen placed here. Because of the oxygen, the breathing of the microorganisms would increase, and this waste would become their food supply. The use of air and the use of oxygen will help the microorganisms to breathe, right? So the liquid mixture, solids with the microorganisms and the water, is sent to the final clarification, that is the secondary clarification tank. In clarification, solids settle down at the bottom, where some of the material is sent to the solid handling process and some is recycled back to replenish the population of the microorganisms in the aeration tank to treat incoming wastewater. Some is removed and some is sent again. So the sum of the waste is again poured back. This is an aeration tank in front of you. So the pre-primary and the primary treatment are already done, and the primary sludge is also collected. But here is the aeration tank. The aeration tank will churn the water. Mixing of the organisms would happen in the presence of air so that the organisms can breed. When they will breed, they will settle down at the secondary clarification tank, and this debris that is collected can be collected. The waste activated sludge can be collected and you can dispose it off further. Some of the microorganisms are again used by recycling so that you can again put them back in the aeration tank. Then we will take the water to the final stage. Then we have, if we do not send the water to the final stage, we can also take it to the lagoons. So lagooning describes the process of placing effluents in a shallow, impermeable water basin to allow degradation to take place on its own. This type of containment is used for wastewater with low place, right? This type of containment is used for wastewater with the low organic contents also. So there should be a low organic content so that the water can replenish on its own, so that anaerobic and aerobic activities can happen in the presence of oxygen, and without oxygen the water can clean itself, and the the algae that would form would settle at the end and the clean water can be taken out. The cleaning of the effluent takes place as a result of the bacterial action. There is aquatic vegetation of algae that also blooms here. The oxidation of the bacterial oxidization of agent comes from the photosynthesis by algae when there is wind also present. So CO2 is released by the bacteria, is used by the algae that is present, and this algae will breed there. There will be the photosynthesis process and the water would become clean. When you look at the diagram, the things would be more clear. There is aerobic activities and anaerobic activities. The detritus waste or the algae waste would settle at the end. The organic bacteria, in the presence of O2, the reaction would happen. The sunlight is also there. O2 and CO2 is also present. And there is the reaction and the action of winds also. Because of this, the waste that is present will be settled at the very bottom and the clean water would come up. So we can collect the clean water at the end. This picture in front of you is the second treatment that I was talking about, that is the aeration tank. So in an aeration tank, you can put the water and you can also remove the active sludge that we were discussing. Then comes the final treatment. So the treated water is disinfected and then it is sent for the wastewater reuse activities or for discharging into the rivers or the streams. Mostly chlorination or the usage of the ultraviolet radiation is used for the disinfection purpose. What can be the different measures in which the tertiary treatment can be done? So the tertiary treatment can use different nutrient removal. So how can you remove more and more nutrients? There can be different microorganisms that can be used. For example, polyphosphate is something that is used at this level. So there is always a presence of phosphorus in the water. Say if the water is too hard and there is a lot of phosphorus in it, you can put a lot of polyphosphate organisms in it. If polyphosphate organisms are placed inside the water, they will eat up the phosphorus that is present there, and you can collect the phosphorus at the end and you can make manures or fertilizers out of it. So this is how the phosphorus can be removed from the water. At different stages, this can be done. Also, nitrification or denitrification can happen. This is how nitrogen can also be collected or released inside the in the atmosphere. Ammonia can also be released. Then we have disinfection. In the disinfection, I told you, your chlorine can be used and UV rays can be used to clean the water. Now this is very important. It's itself a PYQ. Ion exchange can also happen here. Ion exchange can be used in the wastewater treatment plants to swap one ion from another, and this is called as demineralization. The widest application of this purpose is also seen when you are making the water fit for drinking. So the drinking water is a soft water that you should have. If the water is too hard, then you sometimes use the ion fixation or ion exchange, where one ion is replaced with another so that the water can become soft. So domestic water softening is something that can be used, and at the end membrane process can also be done. So these are the few things that we can use in the tertiary sector. At the end, what do we do with the sludge? So let us discuss. The disposal of the sludge or the biosolids is done. Then the sludge undergoes the lime stabilization. We see that the sludge has a lot of pH value activated in it. So the pH is raised by addition of the lime by it, so that the potential pathogens can be killed and sludge becomes very normal to be disposed of. If it is toxic in itself, then it can cause problem. Either air pollution can be a cause or water pollution can also be a cause. Because if in a landfill you put sludge here and this sludge has a lot of toxins, then the toxins can seep down in your groundwater. Leaching is the effect that can happen. So for this, first of all, sanitary landfills should be used, where you have one thick layer of sand that is created there, or metals are used to block the seepage of the water. If sanitary landfill is there, then it's okay, but mostly this activated sludge is treated and you kill the other pathogens that are present when you add the different lime stabilization substance. When you do lime stabilization, the stabilized sludge is then can be used as a manure if there is, if you want to use it, and if it is from an organic compounds that are collected. If you think that it is toxic, you can dispose of. So in our class, we discussed that how waste disposal can happen. In the same way, the sludge can also be disposed. Either incineration, pyrolysis, your composting can be done, or landfills or sanitary landfills can be there. Also, this waste now we want to inculcate this, and we want that more and more energy is created out of the waste. So the waste can also be used to create electricity or methane or different, or it can also be used as a manure in agriculture fields. So this means that you can use the waste for the betterment and the better purposes as well. So this is the whole process. From your home, office and industries, the water that is polluted is taken out and it is sent to the municipal corporation. Pre-primary treatment is done. There are bar screening. Then it enters to the Grurt chamber. Gradually the settling is done, and it is also taken to the digester sometimes. If the digester stores some substances there, some debris is stored there, it can be collected. It is taken also to the alienation tank, where air is added to it. Clarification is done, and then you can again dispose of the water in a digester if you want to. If you still think that the water has some organisms still in it and you want to make it fit for drinking, you can use the process called as the tertiary treatment, where you can use chlorine and UV rays, right? Also, the substances that you have collected, the sludge or the debris, can be taken to landfill. Incineration can be done, or it can be used as for the agriculture purposes like manures. Fertilizers can be made out of it. This is how the water that is treated can be used either for the drinking purposes, or it can be added into a water body, right? So I hope you understood the cleaning process. This diagram in front of you, is very important. You should know what is a debris screen, what is a Grurt removal stage. Then there comes the primary clarification. Then there is alienation tank. There is secondary clarification, where activated sludge is collected, and again some of the activated sludge is sent back. Then comes the filters again. Disinfection would happen. Chlorine and UV rays are used, and then the water is discharged. So I hope you liked the video and you understood it. If you have any doubt, you can write it in the comment section and I'll surely reply to you. Thank you.